Ben Hansen stars in the SyFy channel series Fact or Faked Paranormal Files. We talk with this former FBI agent about the show and about some interesting UFO footage the team recently captured. We'll also talk about UFOs seen during China's recent spacecraft launch, vacations to the moon, and the latest UFO and space news right now on Spacing Out.
Greetings everyone and welcome to Spacing Out. I'm Jason McClellan.
And I'm Maureen Ellsbury.
We'll be talking with television paranormal researcher Ben Hansen on the show today. Ben's a really good friend of ours and we're excited to have him on the show.
That's coming up later in the show, but now it's time for UFO news.
China's NTD television reported that 2 UFOs were seen immediately after the Saturday, June 16th launch of the country's Shenzhou 9 spacecraft. An infrared camera that was recording the spacecraft also managed to record 2 fast-moving dots that appeared to be flying close to the spacecraft as it was leaving Earth's atmosphere.
According to the Borneo Post, viewers present for the launch did not report seeing the mysterious objects, but viewers of the live television broadcast of the launch reportedly did notice the UFOs.
Some have suggested that the fast-moving objects were simply birds, but astronomer Wang Sichao of China's Purple Mountain Observatory commented, "The objects couldn't have been birds because the objects had to be extremely hot to be captured by the infrared cameras." Sichao, who has also researched UFOs for more than 40 years, is open to the idea that the objects could be alien in origin. But at the same time, he acknowledges that, quote, the objects could be airplanes or maybe lights from the surface, and he feels that there are too many possibilities, certainly not enough evidence to jump to any conclusions.
Another possible identification was presented by a member of the Beijing UFO Research Society, who stated, "I remember the same thing happened at the launch of Shenzhou 5 and 6. They could just be insects flying in front of the ground cameras."
Sichao will reportedly continue investigating this, and that's pretty cool. He's actually going to follow up and see what more information he can find about this. I don't know how much more he's going to be able to unearth regarding this, but it's interesting because we haven't heard from Wang Sichao for a while, and he's been very vocal about Chinese UFO sightings in the past.
Yeah, it's good to know he's still around researching. I mean, these are going to be really difficult objects to identify, and it's especially kind of a red flag that you have so many people looking at the sky, watching up there, and nobody from the ground noticed it. It was just on the TV. So that explanation that it might be insects, it's kind of farther away from the camera, so it's hard to tell really. Right,
and the craft was very high, exiting the atmosphere.
Right.
So, you know, it's going to be very difficult to determine much of anything, but it is an interesting video. It
is interesting. And one thing to note is there's a lot more going on in the video that if you watch it, which you can find it on our website, openminds.tv, you're going to see other objects flying behind the object, and that's pieces of the rocket flying off. So those are accounted for. It's the objects in front that zoom really fast that are the objects in question.
And when I initially watched it, my thought was that it's an odd artifact from the camera trying to process what it's seeing, because if you watch it, the pieces of the craft shooting off from the rear, it almost matches the objects you see in the front.
They look almost exactly the same, and that's why I wanted to point out to people that
and the speed looks a little different, and it looks like they kind of go at a different angle, but that could be because the camera that's recording them is actually moving, sort of panning out. But that was my initial thought, because they do look very similar.
In all honesty, I don't think we're going to find a
definitive
identification for these yet.
I think you're probably right.
Additional developments in the exploration of the Baltic Sea UFO recently emerged. It was on June 15th that the treasure hunting company Ocean X team issued a press release stating that their divers met with something abnormal at the bottom of the sea. And according to an article published by All Voices on June 22nd, this mysterious object isn't the only abnormal thing the team encountered during their investigative dive.
Strange anomalies, as they've called it, reportedly occurred when divers were in close proximity to the object. And both shipboard and underwater equipment failures were reported. The Daily Mail quotes Ocean X team member Stefan Hogerborn saying, "Anything electric out there, and the satellite phone as well, stopped working when we were above the object." But equipment functionality returned when the ship moved approximately 650 feet away from the object.
A similar effect occurred underwater when cameras stopped working near the object. All voices suggest that this mysterious interference with equipment could indicate some type of energy emitting from the sunken object.
It's interesting to note here that similar equipment malfunctions are commonly reported by UFO witnesses. So that's kind of interesting here. Team member Dennis Asberg is completely puzzled by his team's find and has allegedly stated the object could be any number of things, such as a meteorite or an asteroid or a volcano or a base from, say, a U-boat from the Cold War, or even a crashed UFO.
You know, the Ocean X team will return to the site in the coming weeks to perform additional tests, and reportedly they're going to be accompanied by a geologist, which obviously is important in this case because
that'll be great because
rock structures.
Yeah, there's definitely hints here that this is something natural, and they have collected samples that are, as far as we know, being tested at the current time. But I mean, we really don't know much. Again, we've talked about this for weeks, and the problem here is that this company seems more interested in hype, in selectively releasing information, than letting us all know what they're actually finding. Well, in fact, they just this week released more information, but haven't posted it to their own website. It was released strategically, perhaps, to just one single media outlet.
And they finally show in this video that they released the egg-shaped hole opening on the top of the object, which, you know, I was waiting for myself. And it's still so hard to see anything because visibility is so bad down there, even with their cameras, that you're not going to figure anything out until this testing's done.
Well, and that paired with the difficulty they're having with their equipment when they're close to the object. So all sorts of interesting things happening here, but you know, it's still unclear what the true motives are. I mean, these are treasure hunters, I understand that, and you know, they're trying to make the most of this interesting find that they have. But apparently the company has also recently acquired a special submarine, and they're going to be hopeful, they're hoping to lure wealthy people who are curious to buy tickets aboard this submarine and go take a closer look at the object.
I hadn't heard that yet.
So they've got a few things up their sleeve. I'm sure they're very conscious of what they're doing. Yeah. But I'd certainly like more information because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like again, we said last week that it's possible that it's some sort of piece of a, you know, ancient city or something along those lines.
There's so many possibilities right now, and we know so little about it, so we can speculate all day long. But, and I will point out, there have been a handful of people who object to this object being called the Baltic Sea UFO. And that's the team that the media has attached to it. And here's the reason. I mean, there's speculation that there's a possibility this is a UFO that crashed into the sea, and therefore it's the Baltic Sea UFO. No, it's not currently flying in the air, so it's not a UFO, but the fact that that's what is suspected this thing could be, is a crashed UFO, is why the media continues using the term Baltic Sea UFO.
And so why we use that nickname instead of calling it a USO, which would be an unidentified submerged object.
Yep.
So just for clarification.
Our audience submission today comes from YouTube user Skewed at Birth. This video shows an interesting object in the sky above upstate New York that, according to the witness, seems to have a diamond shape with a light or reflective material in the middle. The object moves at a consistent speed and doesn't alter its trajectory during its brief appearance in this video.
We thought the appearance and behavior of this object in the video resembles an ordinary commercial aircraft, but we wanted to get an expert opinion, so we asked MUFON photo and video analyst Mark D'Antonio to give us his thoughts.
After watching the video, Mark also concluded that the object is an ordinary aircraft. He explained that the object in the video looks mysterious because it's out of focus. He explained that the very near foreground trees are in focus, but the background is not. The predominant sky color of blue will mix with the out-of-focus background object, causing it to look more blue and to appear as it does. The translucent effect is merely an illusion of the out-of-focus softened edges, suffering with the bleed-through and mixing with the blue background. Further, the plane being several thousand feet up will suffer a blue haze effect, as expected, further making it look softer.
Mark also explained that the object is moving at a speed quite consistent with an aircraft passing through the frame of a video. Based on his experience, he speculates the aircraft is likely a Cessna Citation X aircraft at approximately 4,500 feet.
The witness wasn't completely convinced by Mark's explanation, specifically due to the peculiarity of the object's illumination. But as Mark explained, the sun glint seen near the end of the video is expected and typical of sunlight reflecting off the starboard engine nacelle housing at the back of the aircraft. Further, the strangely shaped glints are due to the camera elements in the video camera and not part of the object itself.
The witness confirmed that there is a nearby airport with frequent commercial, military, and personal aircraft.
Thanks for the great submission, and special thanks to Mark D'Antonio for providing the expert analysis.
If you have video you'd like to share with us, upload it to your favorite video sharing site like YouTube. Send us the link. We might include it in a future episode.
In space news this week, we have a new company to tell you about in the rapidly developing area of space tourism. British company Excalibur Almaz recently announced it will be selling tickets to the moon.
Okay, so the company isn't actually going to take people to the moon's surface.
That's too bad.
Yeah, well, it gets worse. But they are promising space vacations that include orbiting the moon before returning to Earth. Art Dula, the company's founder, recently explained to the Huffington Post that customers will be shuttled into space aboard used Soviet-era spacecraft launched by Russian rockets. The 3-person capsules will dock with one of the company's 2 habitation modules.
These habitation modules are essentially space stations with their own propulsion systems. These space stations will then orbit the moon, a round-trip adventure that will take approximately 6 months to complete. Dula announced that the company is, quote, ready to sell the tickets. And with the company's fleet of space stations and re-entry capsules, they are confident that they can safely fly members of the public to the moon orbit as early as 2015.
Cool, but before anybody rushes out to get tickets, be aware, you should know, a round-trip ticket will reportedly cost you $155 million. So, on top of that 6 months you hopefully have a PTO for.
Yeah, that's a lot of time to take off work, paired with your $155 million bill. Jeez.
I'm at a loss for words, pretty much. I mean,
well, and it sounds kind of sketchy because they're using these Soviet-era crafts that they got,
right.
But they did go through and replace all of the instrumentation in it with modern electronics.
Let's hope so.
But
well, and you got the, if you look, I guess if you look at the price comparison to some of these other space tourism tickets where you're just in space for 15 minutes and they cost $200,000, I guess 6 months at $155 million might be a steal.
Well, and it's cooler than I thought because you're not just crammed up in a capsule like going around the moon and coming back. You're in a space station, and these space stations are reportedly the size of other space stations, like the Mir Russian space station and the ISS. It's like the size of a space station, but it has its own propulsion system. So you're in this habitat, this space station that propels itself around the moon. That's kind of cool.
So you get to run around and eat lots of freeze-dried food.
Who knows how comfortable it is? I wonder if Bigelow Aerospace's habitats are more comfy. But I wouldn't want to spend 6 months crammed in a habitat going around the moon. Yeah,
especially,
it's a cool idea.
What if you got stuck with people you hate?
That's likely.
I guess that's for any astronaut.
Well, and I think they said the spacecrafts hold 3 people.
Yeah.
So you're with these 3 people for, well, two other people for 6 months. Hopefully you know them, but
there's got to be a lot of advanced training that goes on.
I'm sure.
Well, hopefully they send them to our buddy
we had on the show
a
couple weeks ago. Yeah, Ben McGee. It'll be good business for him. But unfortunately, I think this company already signed a contract with a different company to prepare the astronauts.
That's it, they're fired.
But regardless, if you have lots of money and want to go to space, spend a little more time there than just a top-of-the-atmosphere flight, you should look these guys up.
Yeah, and then let us know when you go on your trip.
What will the impact be on religion when extraterrestrial life is discovered? It's a common assumption that such a discovery will be detrimental to the core beliefs of religions around the world. You might be surprised to hear, however, that some experts believe the religious impact will be minor.
A panel discussion on this topic took place on Sunday, June 24th at the SETI Institute's SETICon 2 conference in Santa Clara, California. This panel, titled "Would Discovering ET Destroy Earth's Religions?", concluded that the resulting impact on religion from an alien discovery is probably not going to be as severe as we initially think it is. Now, that's according to panelist Doug Vakash, the director of interstellar message composition at the SETI Institute.
MikeWallaceBase.com points out that the Bible, Quran, and other sacred texts of the world's major religions stress God's special concern for humanity and for Earth. So discovering ET might seem threatening by implying that we and our planet aren't that special. But as SETI Institute senior astronomer Seth Shostak mentioned during the panel, we haven't been the center of the universe for a while now, for centuries.
Ancient astronomers Copernicus and Galileo countered the established belief that the sun and everything else in the universe revolved around Earth. Little egotistical. Such crazy talk was viewed as blasphemy by the world's largest Christian church, the Catholic Church. The present-day Vatican, however, is much more open to science and the possibilities of life elsewhere in the universe.
In a 2009 interview with Vatican newspaper L'Osservatore Romano, Father Jose Gabriel Funes, the director of the Vatican Observatory, stated, "As a multiplicity of creatures exist on Earth, so there could be other beings, also intelligent, created by God. This does not contrast with our faith because we cannot put limits on the creative freedom of God."
In addition to this latest panel discussion on the topic of extraterrestrial impact on religion, an ETI crisis survey was conducted in 2008 by Dr. Ted Peters, professor of systematic theology at both Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary and the Center for Theology and the Natural Sciences at the Graduate Theological Union, Berkeley, California, to test the belief that upon confirmation of contact between Earth and an extraterrestrial civilization of intelligent beings, the long-established religious traditions of Earth would confront a crisis of belief and perhaps even collapse. More than 1,000 people from varying religions participated in the study, and results show that only a very small percentage of the participants felt their personal beliefs would be affected by the confirmation of extraterrestrial life.
And another interesting element to that study was that not only did people think that their own religion would not be affected, but it seems to be normal for religion and the bickerings between religions. People felt that, oh, my religion's going to be just fine. It's other people who are going to have a problem with their religion.
Yeah. I mean, and this is always a hot topic, you know, hot button topic, and it was pretty big back in the 2 years ago when the Vatican had announced that, oh yeah, we definitely think that there is life out there, and I mean that ties with a lot of people who tie extraterrestrial life into religion in the sense that maybe Jesus was an alien coming down from Earth and that he'll return. And I mean, it gets complicated, and there's a lot of different details in it, but I think that it's very easy for that type of belief to fit in with the idea of life outside of Earth.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think we've seen religions around the world adapt to many things that have happened over time. I mean, religions themselves are quite old. You know, they adapt with new findings, and I mean, the example of Copernicus was great. I mean, you know, that was an entire shift in our worldview.
Right.
And I think, you know, we talk about a lot the different studies that are done now and just the sort of, not really conditioning, but I think people are generally used to the idea by now that the likelihood of extraterrestrial life being great. And depending on how people view their own religions, and that's another issue because not everybody agrees on their own religions, but you know, I think there's room for it to fit, and it seems that most people agree with that.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with everyone getting so into the idea of ancient astronauts and ancient alien
That has certainly
theories
helped.
that they've kind of become numb, like you said, conditioned almost.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not surprised by this. So.
No, I'm not either. The United Nations has instructions for what to do when contact is made with extraterrestrials. At least that is what Russian cosmonaut Gennady Padalka claimed during an interview on Chinese TV.
Speaking from the International Space Station, Padalka stated, "The UN and representatives of China have developed detailed instructions in the case of first contact."
According to Russian media outlet RIA Novosti, Padalka shared his belief that humans are not alone in the universe, stating, "Sooner or later, we will meet our like-minded brothers." The interview between Padalka and Chinese TV marked the launch of China's manned space mission to the country's Tiangong-1 space station.
Russian scientists are extremely interested in communication with extraterrestrials. For the past 3 years, the Russian Institute of Applied Astronomy, or the IAA, has hosted the Searching for Life Signatures Symposium, where scientists meet to discuss both passive SETI, search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and active METI, messaging extraterrestrial intelligence efforts. The 4th annual Searching for Life Signatures Symposium takes place in September of 2012.
And I've been fascinated by a lot of the Russian cosmonaut stories because there are so many, you know, interesting encounters with UFOs and just their opinions. And as we just mentioned, the scientists looking into communicating with extraterrestrials and just researching extraterrestrial life in general. And for those who are interested in Russian cosmonauts and more stories like this, Open Minds' Antonio Huneeus recently wrote an article in the upcoming issue of Open Minds magazine that's all about Russian cosmonauts.
Yeah, and I think we possibly have some stories like that from him on our website as well, covering.
Yeah, we certainly do. Antonio's done a good job of researching and writing about these stories. And the new issue of Open Minds magazine, the August-September issue, will hit newsstands in a couple weeks.
July 17th.
July 17th, so watch for that.
Now let's talk with our guest today, Ben Hansen.
All right, we're on with Ben Hansen today. Ben, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. How's it going, guys?
It's fantastic. Well, Ben, congratulations. I guess your series, Fact or Fake Paranormal Files, just wrapped up its, what is this, the second season?
End of the third, actually.
End of the third season.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, I didn't catch the finale, but I would love to soon. And the cool thing about Fact or Faked is that pretty soon after the episodes air, they're available on the website.
Usually.
Yeah, usually they have the last 2 or 3, episodes that are up there, and then they put them up on I think Hulu pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Netflix has started carrying them, and then I'm told it's on demand. I honestly don't even know what on demand is because I don't really watch a whole lot of TV.
Well, sounds demanding.
Yeah. Well, the last time Jason and I saw you was at the 2012 UFO Congress, and you presented some interesting cases you guys have worked on. And one that's really sort of garnered a lot of attention lately was the Florida woodland UFO case. Could you give us a brief overview of what that was?
Yeah, we had a really amazing video that was, I can't remember, it was Bill's case. I don't believe it was sent to him. I think we found it. And it's in the Panhandle of Florida. There was a guy who was traveling along a highway there, and he pulls over because he sees this light that is traveling behind some trees. Now, it's really marshy, as a lot of Florida is. And he wasn't exactly sure if it was over water or if it was over land at that part, but he gets out and starts filming this thing. So it's probably best described as like a, looks like an E.T. Type, like the craft that is at the end of E.T. where it goes to take him home. I mean, the thing looks massive. So the video was really good. The experiments we did, we used a fan boat, we used an ATV, and some other things. Looked pretty good. However, the witness, according to Bill and from what I saw in the videos, he appears pretty credible. And we just weren't able to nail down certain aspects of the video. So during the night investigation, Devin was at the base camp, and he's got a full spectrum camera, which sees into both the UV and the IR spectrum. Mm-hmm. That's on a locked-off shot looking over this waterway while Bill and Lanisha went on a boat, and they went around the corner. So as they're, within radio range, Bill and Lanisha start to see something in the forest on the backside. Now, they described it as kind of diffused light. I don't think they actually saw a solid form or shape. Mm-hmm. So whatever was emanating the light was in the trees, and about the same time, Devin started to see something on the full spectrum camera monitor. And the way those work, this particular model, is it puts a little square that picks up movement and pixelation. So they were picking up movement of little tiny lights, like floating on the water. And Devin calls out to him, and they're seeing this thing in the forest. Suddenly the light just kind of sucks into one point and disappears. And when we went back and reviewed the tape, Devin doesn't remember seeing this on the monitor. So either he was turned away from it, he doesn't remember seeing it with his own eyes. So either he wasn't looking at the monitor, or he was looking out towards the water, and you can't actually see it with your own naked eye, which is really interesting. But nevertheless, when we look at the video, what you see is a light that comes up over the tree line, hovers for a split second, and then just zips off. And what I pointed out in the Congress was that this light, we know, was not in the foreground near the camera because it has those tracking squares not only on the light but also on the reflection of the light on the water. So an amazing catch, really perplexing to me. And you know, if I have some time, I'd like to go back there myself and check out the area.
Yeah, for sure. So is this footage the most intriguing or the best UFO footage that the team has captured, or is there anything that's better than that?
I think that tops it for us. Yeah, I mean, we had a flash of light when we were near Area 51. I saw what was like a red strobe that flashed once and then went off, which to me, I was thinking that was an aircraft getting ready to land, and it either landed lights out or, you know, continued on. Not anything too unusual. However, they saw a streak of light there, which may or may not have been a meteor, but the way that it appears to kind of bend in direction in one of the cameras is kind of strange. And then we had one we actually captured in Arizona, our first episode with Jeff Willis, when we were out there, and the light is just zipping by, going back and forth. But to me, the way that this light maneuvers and comes out of the trees in Florida is probably the most compelling.
Another interesting case I'd love to hear about is one that you were involved in the investigation. I think it was you, Jael, and Devin. A case in England where this woman claimed that she was being abducted by aliens, and in the video you see this woman just disappear before your eyes. Yeah,
this is probably when people ask me what's my most favorite case. You know, I have a bunch of favorites for various reasons, but this one, as far as the most puzzling to me, is the top of my list. Interestingly enough, last year when I was at the UFO Congress, not speaking, but I had the booth there, I made connections. You know, it was actually through Nick
Pope.
Nick Pope. I spoke to him, but it wasn't until after speaking with Nick that one of his friends, Brigitte, who's known as you know, a abductee that had some experiences here in the United States and then back in England. Anyways, she contacted me, and it was through her that this lady had approached her seeking help, seeking advice, because she'd heard about her experiences. And Brigitte told me, she said, hey, you know, I've got a story you might want to take a look at. It really hasn't even started making the rounds on the internet yet. So when I got in contact with this woman, she was very hesitant, especially to go on TV. I mean, it took some coaxing. When we finally got the video from her, the thing I love about you know, Sonia is that she does not ever profess to know exactly what's going on. She doesn't say this was alien. She doesn't say that she actually disappeared. She only knows she had some very strange experiences of witnessing a UFO craft a couple nights before, and then would wake up with these surreal, you know, we would call them dreams, but she swears that she was awake. You know, being kind of removed from her bed and then appearing in an examination type room. So she's really disturbed by this, has her husband set up a night vision camera to record them while they sleep in their room. And you see this, well, what she describes is waking up and feeling like something happened. So she goes back while her husband's at work, reviews the tape, and there you see this 13 minutes where she seems to literally dissolve into the mattress, and she's gone. And then her form reappears. And, you know, we were able to show how that could be done with a hydraulic lift and some other things. But to be honest, it's just one of those cases where I think people, when you meet her, it's kind of like talking to Travis Walton. When you meet her, hear her story, everything about it, you know, from human behavior and gesturing and all that, tells you that this woman is genuine. If they had hoaxed this, it would be a very, very cruel hoax. And I think her husband would have had to have done it. And I just don't feel that it was hoaxed.
And I think your opinion in that case counts for a lot, because, you know, your background gives you a very good skill set for being able to have a better understanding if somebody is being truthful or not. So the fact that, you know, from your speaking with her, that you felt that there was no deception there, that's pretty incredible.
Well, thank you. I think whatever happened really did happen, and if there is an alternative explanation, it would be that under some strange set of circumstances, I think we're looking at an optical illusion, to where she would have rolled in towards her husband and appeared to have disappeared, or maybe she wasn't. Well, I don't know. I mean, if you watch the video, you're kind of left open, just like I am. I really don't know what to make of it. Now, I do keep in contact with her. She finally has, by her own volition, wanted to come out and start talking, maybe using her real identity and going out on the circuit to talk to people, because she's worried that, well, first of all, she wants to get answers from people who had similar experiences, but also she knows how she felt and how traumatic it was for her, and wants to kind of let other people know, that they're not the only ones maybe experiencing this.
I've got to give you another compliment here, Ben. And I mean, there are people who haven't actually watched Fact or Faked, or people who have briefly watched Fact or Fake, and they jump to the conclusion that all the show does is debunk. And that's what the show is set out to do, is debunk, debunk, debunk. And that's not the case. And I think you personally do a fantastic job, as does the rest of the team. But yes, you do show how things could possibly be done. But if you feel that they're credible, whether it's the witnesses are credible or the video that we're seeing could possibly have happened as the story behind it indicates, you're not afraid to say that. You right away say, I think there's some credibility to this. Even though we showed that it can be done this way, I still think it's probable.
Doesn't mean it is fake just because you can reproduce it.
Right.
So.
Exactly. And when they named the show, it's catchy to call it Fact or Fake, but we always joke about it being, the title should be like Fact, Faked, or It's rarely the case where it's black and white, and I was afraid we were going to kind of put people off by calling faked, because it's not really the case. Oh, there goes my phone. It's not really the case that many things are, able to be labeled as right out faked, and we are not. I don't like to think of us as a debunking show. I like to think of us as a verifying, kind of a program, because we should all be skeptical, as I say, not necessarily skeptics, because it's kind of a loaded term.
Right.
But once we go through, that process of considering the most plausible and sometimes the ridiculous, what you're left with often further validates the paranormal explanation.
Yeah. Very important point.
Well, I know that you are a busy guy. So what is next on the agenda for Ben Hansen? Is there another season that you're going to start working on, or other projects? What's next for you?
Well, there are rumors. We're waiting for the ratings to come in from last night, and then of course it's all driven by what shows people are watching. So we have to wait and see if we'll have a fourth season. We all feel pretty confident that we will be back in production within a few months. In the meantime, I'm working on a website at benhansen.com, so we'll be able to kind of put all this stuff together. I'm on the road probably once or twice a month doing events through November, and I'm also working on a couple of new TV shows in development. So I'll go to my website probably the next couple of days, and all that will be up there.
Cool.
Well, that's pretty exciting. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Ben. We look forward to talking to you again. All right. Take care.
Well, thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Spacing Out. Be sure to visit openminds.tv for all the latest news. And join us again next week when we'll talk with UFO journalist Ryan Sprague.
Thanks for joining us. Remember, we welcome your submissions. If you have something you'd like to contribute to the show, you can always email us at contact@openminds.tv. I'm Maureen Ellsbury.
And I'm Jason McClellan. Remember to like this episode on YouTube and leave us your comments. We love hearing from you. And also remember, this show is available in two formats for your convenience: the audio podcast and the video webisodes, both which you can access at openminds.tv/spacing out. Thanks again for watching and/or listening, and we will see you in the future.